live. I got your live notification. Whatever
Like 10
bad
times?
juju. Yeah. Well, whatever bad juju was happening, I think we've cleared it. It's
Oh
good
my
now.
gosh, I'm so sorry, everyone. I hope people show up. I see 8 beautiful people here. Thank you so much. Oh my
I know
gosh.
lots of patient
Okay.
people coming back. Yeah.
Oh my
Yay.
gosh. Tech stuff, like I'm telling you, I have like sweat dripping down my like torso right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would not
It's
know.
not
You look
you.
gorgeous. I mean,
You look gorgeous. It's not you. Everyone, I want to send a big kiss. I feel like I'm so sorry. Thank you for hanging in. And am I
yeah.
shouting? I think I'm shouting. Okay. So I had this whole setup in another room, and now I'm holding my phone like, ugh. Okay. So,
Same.
okay. All right. Welcome to our live. I see 13 beautiful people who have decided to come back
Mm.
and not give up on us. And I hope there will be more. Let me know if I am shouting, because my husband always says I'm so loud, and I'm going to try to talk really intimately to you. So, let's get together and talk about memoir. Okay. So I'm joined today. Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. I'm joined today by Melise Galula, who is in charge of Memoiring Book Club and does a whole bunch of other things. You have an MFA in nonfiction writing. You are a writer. You are an entrepreneur. You have created Memoiring Book Club. And I really wanted to ask you if you can just share a little bit about that in case some of my friends and people who aren't yours don't know about it yet.
Yeah, I'd love to. And Ronit, thank you so much for just making all of this happen. I should say I've been listening to your podcast for at least 2 years, maybe a little bit more. As I was driving to Sarah Lawrence for my MFA, I would listen to the podcast, and then I would like get to workshop, and I'd be like, okay, here's an interview you need to go listen to, and
Oh
here's
my gosh, I didn't
yeah.
know that.
Yeah, I know. I was saving it for this conversation. I was saving the surprise.
Thank you so much.
And
It's funny because I feel like, to me, like I didn't realize your MFA was just in the past couple years. Is that
I
right?
know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It definitely was a you only live once MFA. I
Well, because I didn't realize my show is kind of new. It's not. I mean, it's like 3 years now, but
yeah.
I thought that you'd gotten your MFA like 5 years ago.
No. I mean, I finished when did I finish? Not this past May, the May before. But yeah, it was something. I mean, the whole genesis of the Memoiring Book Club and my like pivot from journalism and media into memoir kind of happened during the pandemic, I would say.
Mhm.
I had created and co-founded Well and Good, which was a wellness media uh huge company, huge brand. It now lives under the skim, which a lot of people have heard about. But when I exited that company in 2020, after 10 years, 12 years, I had this moment, like a lot of people do, of like what your next move is. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh, maybe I'll start another business. Media is a very hard business. And I had been a writer and an editor, starting in book publishing, magazines, and then digital. So the MFA for me was kind of like, well, if I could have my druthers, if I could just do anything, what would it be? And it was like write a book about my mother. What? What? And there's a longer story there, which I'll
Well,
share
because I think
sometime.
you talked about that you did not ever want to share that story.
I didn't. I don't think that like I'm from a generation where people wanted to hear about mental illness in the family. They didn't want to meet the people who were mentally unwell or the daughters of those people. It was just like a great shame cloud over my life, I think.
Yeah.
And I like yeah, and I think that like, the upbringing, I mean, this well, you talk to memoirists day in and day out. The upbringing that, that I went through that other people do, yeah, it makes some, substantial material for a memoir. You have to learn how to turn that into art. It's very different than journaling. It's very different than journalism. And boy, that was a shocker to me.
Well, I think that memoir is so, I know everything you've said just now, I could probably piece apart and we could talk forever about it. But what I do want to say is that I do think it's one of the hardest genres because not only do you need to have some writing chops or some craft behind you to write, you also need this idea of interrogation, self-interrogation.
Definitely.
You are contending often with shame or trauma. You're contending with the private lives of other people who didn't ask to be in your story. I mean, this is just the few things on the top of my head.
Yeah.
You're dealing with whether or not you want to expose yourself this way. And you're also deciding how much to cut and how much to leave. And if people
Yep.
are really understanding what you're trying to say. So this is
You
like
got it.
even just the tip of the iceberg. So it's like, why
Yes.
would anyone do this genre? But
Yeah.
why can people, but the title of our conversation before we had to shut it down and start a couple more times was why we can't get enough of memoirs. So,
Right.
you host Memoiring Book Club. You have a ton of people who come to your courses and who want to listen to the authors that you have. Why do you
Mhm.
think people can't get enough of memoir? Like, what do you think that is about?
Well, I mean, I think there's so many entry points. I mean, I was a writer interested in talking with memoirists about their craft. And I was in an MFA program just like hungry for more like full length narrative
Yeah.
memoir. In MFA programs, I don't know if this is your experience, we read a ton of personal essay, but that's not what I'm writing first and
Yes, it's
foremost.
different. It's very
So
different.
it's so different. It was a little bit similar to journalism in a way. And I was like, no, no, no. I need to know all the like fiction tools to carry a reader through 260 pages. I need
Hmm.
character development. Anyway, so that was my entry point. It was frankly just like being a builder of community. I was like, I need these things. I kind of don't want to do it alone. Who's going to read memoirs with me? And so, that was
Yeah.
the genesis. And it was for myself as an emerging memoirist. And those were the first, I would say that still memoiring is about 75% emerging memoirists, folks who are working on their first or
Wow.
second book. Yeah. But then, it's just, of course, an incredibly popular genre. There's always a bestseller, in memoir
Well,
on
let's
the
talk
bestseller
about that
list.
too, because
Yeah.
it is such a popular genre, and yet we hear all these things from agents and
Negative.
publishers.
Yeah.
What's up with that? Like,
Yeah.
well, it's a really hard thing to sell, and that we don't accept that many, blah blah blah. And then you see all these memoirs coming out. I cannot keep up with the memoirs coming out.
Yeah. Me
People
neither.
post about memoirs, and of course, it's not my job to keep up. Like, I would never do that. I'm not a publisher, but
You
I'm,
do a great job, by the way. You do a
oh,
great job. Yeah, yeah,
thank
yeah.
you, but every time I turn around, people will say, "Oh, do you know that memoir?" I'm like, "I actually don't," and then I feel like this is a thriving genre, so
Yeah.
there is sort of it feels like a disconnect between what we're called to write and what
Yes.
people seem to wanna read, and then the opportunities for memoirists and traditional publishing, but I know that's a whole 'nother tangent. So, well, how I know you had Melissa Febos as a guest recently at
Yeah.
Memoir Book Club, which is wow, and do you normally get like, what is it that the members of Memoiring Book Club want a lot to hear from and about?
Sure. Well, like every month I choose a book and I do choose a different subgenre. And yeah, there's some authors that are definitely, top of list, I think, for a lot of the folks in the memoiring community. I think what they're really interested in, like, here's the number one question that I think every author that joins us every month for our book club conversation, it gets asked. And that question is, how did you do it? How did you
Mm,
narrow the scope of your project down?
ah,
How did you transform your life into art? How did you structure the damn thing? Structure gets so much
so
attention in
it
memoir.
does, it really does. Do you like
Yeah.
talking about structure? Because I feel like
Oh,
I used to get afraid of it, but now I actually really enjoy it. And I'm teaching a course next week here at a conference that actually I saw Jennifer Lee Sillig is just joined us, and she told me about it. And I'm
mm,
teaching there, and I came up with an analogy about structure, which I think is really fun. Like, structure can be so intimidating, but I really think it has so much to do with your narrative arc. That's where
yeah.
you can really get in there. And also, what I really want to say to anyone who's here, something that I teach in my classes is like, you could actually make a case for lots of different structures and lots of different forms. I mean, there are books that are structured on where you lived, all the different residences. There are structures, around relationships. There are structures, you could structure a memoir around the pets that you had, which is something I contemplated years ago before I knew I was going to write my memoir the way I did. Like, you can make a case for it. And then if it doesn't
Yep.
work, you start something else, right?
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I would say memoirists are very generous about coming to the book club every month, in part because I think it's in their like publicity mandate, right? Like memoirists are really expected to get out there and be their own best PR person.
Do
And
you really
so,
think, like, in your experience, because I know you talked about that it's very different from fiction, and I'm curious, you know, I would love to talk a little bit more about that with you. I know we're just starting that. And anyone who has any comments about this can leave that in the messages because I'm
Yeah,
curious what people's impression is of this is that as
me too.
memoirists, we have to push ourselves out there and promote ourselves so much. Do you think it's because it's that nonfiction umbrella of you need platform?
I think that that's one of the burdens. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Memoir has a much more of an expectation of memoir of a platform. What are you showing up with? What's your Instagram? What's
Because
your
it's your
Substack?
story, right?
Because it's your story. You're not coming in unless you're like, Britney Spears with your memoir, or lots of other famous
Like
examples.
everyone who's famous writing a memoir, which
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
argue a lot of that is probably more like autobiography, but that's my own
Yeah.
soapbox.
No, no, I think that's absolutely right. Jeanette McCurdy, is maybe a good example of someone like a huge platform. So those of us with just really important family stories, personal stories to tell, have to give publishers just a larger why care. Well, if we already have a
Mhm,
built-in audience, if we're
mhm.
connected in the media industry and we can do events with other authors, if we're willing to write a proposal for our book that could take us a year. There are just certain hurdles I think memoirists really do have to contend with. And I'm not saying that it's easy peasy for
Easy
fiction
for fiction.
writers.
Yeah, but
They don't
I do have dreams sometimes because I used to write fiction, like, I do have this, like, silly little fantasy, and if there are fiction writers here, you can definitely disabuse me of this fantasy that if I wrote a novel and it was really good or it was interesting, I could, grab it really quickly and sell it, and I'd be like, "Phew," and then the
see.
publisher would, like, send, all this promotion and PR behind it because it was, like, the new novel. Of course, all of this is
Yeah.
fantasy land
Yeah.
versus being a memoirist because I mean, when I was writing my memoir and I started to pitch agents, I remember thinking, this is awesome. They're going to love it. But I
Yeah.
know that the way that I pitched it, they might have thought that I had been in the cult that my mom had been in, or
Mhm.
they might have thought that I did something scandalous or that I lived on the ashram or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. This wasn't that kind of, scintillating topic on my end, right? And so that wasn't what they wanted. And I'm not famous and I didn't kill anyone and don't plan to. And I'm not in recovery, so I don't think I had the razzle dazzle to sell it the way I wanted to
Mm,
originally. And I ended up
interesting.
with an indie publisher. Now, of course, that was my own path.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about does that discourage your memoirists? You've got all these memoirists taking classes. So if promotion comes up, platform comes up, why do we keep writing memoir if we know how hard it is?
Yeah, I think just all of us are called to do this. Why do we do hard things in life? Because they carry importance for us, meaning for us. We only get one go round as far as we know. And a lot of people have a story burning inside them. So, whether or not their audience is the other folks in memoiring someday, an press, which I mean, great experience these days with indie press and the amount of support that they're giving authors. I've heard so
Yeah.
many
And
incredible
so many
stories.
opportunities for the different forms and non-traditional memoirs, which I know you and I had talked a little bit you wanted to talk about sales numbers a little bit and lyric memoir too. But there's
Well,
so many
yeah.
beautiful forms.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And I think just, the sales numbers can be shocking in a way. Like you said, it's really hard for us to keep up with all the memoir coming out, and at the same time, I, I hear people saying on, some of the more business minded book podcasts, we're just publishing too many books now, like the canon has totally exploded. And like the number of books that we'll publish in a year equal all the books that were published in like the 20th century. I've heard that stat recently. And
Wow.
I am not I think it was from the Book Riot podcast
Mhm.
that I heard that. And I haven't fact checked that, but if that is the case, look, it's not stopping people from writing and it's not stopping the publishing industry from publishing. I just think there's just a more difficult threshold for memoirists and they
Yeah.
don't like it doesn't stop them. They will not be deterred. And then
Yeah.
there's something about coming to, there's a reason the book club has the author there every month, memoiring. And that is because, the process of turning your life into art is just so fascinating. And it's really hard to get that kind of behind the scenes material with just other readers. I love being a reader of a book club. I have a degree in English literature, but it's very different when you have like the craftsman or craftsperson
Well,
there.
right. And also, I recently was talking to a writer who asked me if I would be okay reading their story, we were talking about editing and stuff, and because it's a very difficult story and there's child loss in it. And I said,
Yeah.
of course it's a hard story. And so many of us have these hard stories of loss. And I think that that's something about a memoiring book club, or let's talk memoir, or when we go to memoir classes with other memoirists, we are able to say, yes, I see that you've been through something and it's
Yeah.
very delicate and fragile. And I see you. And we are going to mold it into art and actually talk about craft here. We're not going to feel badly because we're talking about your story in a craft way. We are going to
Right.
take your experience. And I think that that is something that there is a difference between the stories that we tell ourselves to survive, what we come to understand through the process of writing our memoirs. I mean, that's what I learned. And I think that that is the act of discovery that also helps readers turn the page.
Yes. Thank you. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah. Yeah. I think that that is, a huge part of the process. Like if you're a therapy head, you're probably a good candidate for being a memoirist because it is similar excavation work. People focus on the catharsis, supposed catharsis of memoir a lot. But for me, it's about the excavation process. And I really want to know like how authors contend with this part of it, I think we're in search of being seen and visibility is a big part of it. And as Dominica Ruda, the amazing memoirist, said, that memoir is like a practice of empathy. And it's, one of the most incredible ways that, as you're saying, with sensitivity and visibility, we can experience each other's like loss together. And you
Hmm.
do such a beautiful job of that on your podcast. I feel like in another life, you could have been a therapist. You're very sensitive about the way you ask your interviewees questions. And yeah, yeah, you
You
do a
know
great
what's
job of
funny is that
balancing that.
I interviewed a therapist for an article recently that I'd interviewed many years ago, and I came back to her because I said, "Can I please, I can't ask my own therapist. She doesn't want to be a source in my article. She's like, it's kind of weird." So I asked this therapist again, and at the end of our conversation, I said, I just feel like in another life I might have wanted to do therapy. And she's like, and she said, and she's got many years in the field. She's a professor at UW. She
Okay.
said, it's the same. She's like, "You're doing the same thing." She said, "Memoir memoir and therapy." And of
The
course,
same.
we hear all the time that, memoir is not therapy.
Right,
But,
right.
and actually, one of my students, this was the best. One of my students, she said to me, because she didn't really, she was she grew up a little hard scrabble and having to defend herself and take care of herself, which a lot of us do, and be plucky. And
Yeah,
I'm summarizing that some of us, we have to lock out our feelings growing up so that we can
sure,
survive, right? That's a
sure.
survival thing. And then memoir is this chance to go back and actually maybe look at it and feel it and have empathy for ourselves when we were younger.
Totally.
And she said that she took herself to therapy now. She's in her late 50s or early 60s. She said, "Well, Roni, I took myself to therapy because I actually want to write this memoir."
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
thought that was so funny because lots of us go to therapy and then we realize, oh, I have a story in us. But she knows she has a story and she wants to go to therapy so she can actually get in touch with her feelings about it.
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea. I mean, a lot of people are like, how do I manage these big feelings while I'm writing? Did I do like taking a walk afterward is just not cutting it? And so, yeah,
Yeah.
therapy is the right way to go. And I really appreciate that quote about, the stories we tell ourselves to, the stories that we
Survive.
told ourselves to survive. Yeah. Like when I was thinking about that, it was just through my discovery process and writing memoir. And that even though I had been in psychoanalysis for many years, and actually I'm trained in psychoanalysis, I
Oh,
practiced
wow.
for just 3 years, but
I didn't know that.
yeah, I'm super fascinated in the unconscious. And but for me, it was I didn't realize that I was going to learn new things writing memoir. I didn't
About yourself
realize.
or about
Yeah.
people?
Yeah, well, both,
Mhm.
honestly. I didn't realize that it was a discovery process where I thought it was a lot more like journalism. Here are the facts, they're just coming
Yes.
from memory, and it's my job to report what I experienced. When in fact, in the act of reporting those things, I think by nature of the distance and the act of writing, there's an observer you that switches on. And I was like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't equal that anymore. So what is
Yes.
true?
Well, right, and that is it's a story of becoming, it's a journey of self-discovery, and
Yeah.
it's what you said before, it's not just what happened, like what some of your students, that's one of the elements you talk about. It's not just what happened, it's what we make of
Yeah.
what happened, what matters. And I think I I think I was fairly fair-minded about my parents. Each of them left. That's what my memoir has to do with, and the guru and all that. But what I did discover was a little bit more understanding about how my father left first. My story
Mm,
growing up kind of told to me by my dad to an extent that his ex-wife had left. She left us. He was the hero father. He was the single dad raising these two girls in the 80s. Wow.
yeah.
But you know what? He left first. And in gathering the story, I got to understand, like, I must have felt that loss as a child really young, writing those scenes to say goodbye to your father and not see him for a long time and then rejoin him. And then he's different from how he ever was. He had been a father of like complete attention for me and nurturing. And then he left,
Yeah.
because he was so
Mhm.
frustrated with the divorce. So I had to rebuild that trust with him, and then forever implanted in there. Then my mom left was a seed of, oh, parents leave and maybe I'm not good enough to stay for. So
Oh,
that's part
yeah.
of what became my memoir, the kernel of my memoir. And I think that
Yeah.
you said that the not knowing like what to leave in and what to leave out is a big element for your memoirist. Is that right in your class?
I think so. I think it's like um, one of my professors, Joanne Beard, said it's about finding your shard. It's like what element of your life story are you going to tell? So what of all of this makes a captivating 300-page book? Because this is an autobiography. We're not Winston Churchill. We're not doing,
Yes, yes,
birth or death. So what is
yeah,
it? And I think like you were saying earlier, with structure, you can defend, there will be lots of angles, there's lots of ways in, right? So and you can defend a lot of them. So some of it is like, what is the shard, like what is that piece with heat, what is that
yes.
piece with that will propel readers? So yeah, i
Yes,
think i think
and
that's a
then
big
that's
question.
yeah, you have to also be willing to say, well, like, I had a scene that I'd written that I felt really good about in my one of my revisions, and my advisor, Deborah Gartney, at the time said, well, this is, what is it doing? And so then I realized I either have to find more meaning in this scene here or I need to cut it.
Mm.
And I cut it.
Ugh,
But in another instance, I cut it. It wasn't pivotal. I was happy with the writing. I thought I'd done good like space work and all that stuff and setting, but it really wasn't doing anything. It was basically
right.
making the manuscript baggy. So
Hmm.
aside from those elements, is there anything else that comes up a lot in memoiring book club for your writers that you think would be useful, or is that yes, and also Lisa Marie Bazile is here and she says the shard, which I really like. And I have to say, you got to work with Joanne Beard. I mean, ah,
I know she retired like just last a year ago. She's yeah, but I think she's going to be around. I think she's going to still teach every now and then. Yeah, but
yeah,
yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, the Fourth State of Matter
I
was
know.
written.
One of the first essays I read before I even knew I wanted to be a memoirist.
Same. And I was at Iowa the year that incident happened.
Uh,
And I had never read that piece till, gosh, 2017, 2018. I didn't know about it. And it was, yeah, it's a full circle kind of story for me. But to answer your question, I feel like, there are lots of questions that you are so good at asking on your podcast of authors about like, how did writing affect your life? How did it affect your family? How do you share it with your family? And I think a lot of those interpersonal pieces that come up with memoir that might not come up quite so much with fiction. With fiction, we allow the author a little bit of distance from their
mm.
material. If you're writing about like, abuse or sex or people don't necessarily map it to you maybe in quite the same way, and so navigating that as a human being and a writer, I think those are really
I
interesting
mean, just
parts
add
of our
that to the
conversation.
pile. Yeah, I
Add it to
mean,
the pile. Yeah.
add it to the pile of why memoir is so hard, which is why I think memoirists are some of the strongest people I know,
Yeah,
right? I
and
mean,
also, yeah, like how it takes folks longer to write a memoir, they say, than fiction, right? Like a lot of amazing fiction writers have then turned to memoir and be like, wait, this is taking 6, 7, 8 years. Why is it taking
20
so long?
years. Yeah,
20
or
years
or
later. Yeah.
also one of my favorite things, maybe it's a little snarky, I don't think it is, but you tell me, everyone. When fiction writers keep trying to tell their story in a fiction way, but you're like, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm very Snoopy. I'm
Lucky.
like, this happened to you. I
Yeah.
know you're trying to, and not that it's some big surprise, right? I mean, we all write
Right.
from our experience, but I mean, I was masking my real life in fiction for a long time. And I actually think
Sure.
that in some ways, or maybe in lots of ways, memoirists have a lot of integrity. I've recently found out about a couple of experiences. I read some articles. Some people knew about these, and I won't go on a
Mm.
giant tangent. I have another question for you about memoiring, but where people were basically grabbing details from another person's life and incorporating them into their fiction. And then these people kind of figured it out and they were like, I feel like this is me. I feel like they know about my life somehow. It was very specific. And I thought, hats off to a memoirist who will do the hard work of excavating their story, interrogating their own behavior, figuring out their journey of self discovery, and then being honest about it. And very often letting their family and loved ones know, hey, I'm doing this, again
Right.
and again. That's what we talk about on the memoir too, on the podcast too. But I do want to
Yeah.
ask you, this is your second year of memoiring, right? We're celebrating. That's part of the reason we're doing this. And I think
That's right.
we should spend like a moment just celebrating you and celebrating Let's Talk Memoir because
Oh,
there's a reason for
yes.
this.
That's right. That's
So
right.
this is your
Yeah.
second year of memoiring book club.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. And this is like the celebration moment right here with you, Ronit. Yeah. This is the big thing I had planned. When you asked me, I was like, great. This is what I'm doing this year.
So what
Yeah.
what can people look forward to in the coming year from Memoiring Book Club? Why don't you do your little spiel and then I'll do a mini spiel, and then if there's anything we
Sure.
didn't do, let me know, and then we can be done in a half hour, which is what we said.
Amazing. Amazing.
Not
Okay.
that
Well,
we're done. I mean, not that we're done. So maybe one day you and I can co-host some type of memoir get together or something.
Let's do that. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that would be amazing. I feel like this is, like you were saying earlier, the tip of the iceberg. I don't really have a spiel, but I'll tell you, Memoiring Book
Well, where
Club,
can they
it,
join?
yeah, is on Substack. So when you become a subscriber, you get a monthly email from me saying what our book club pick is and the date that the author will be joining us. And you will get a Zoom link if you're a subscriber to be able to come. And what's wonderful is it's not actually an interview. I kick things off, but it's really like a roundtable Q&A. So I have a few questions to kick things off, but anyone can ask questions. We just ask that they're applicable to the other people there. So they're not super detailed to your book project, but like, how did you tell your family, blah, blah, blah. So other people can benefit. So the next one we have coming up, our September book, is from Pulitzer Prize winner Tessa Halls, the author of Feeding Ghosts, which is a graphic memoir. I've never had a graphic memoir in the book
How
club
fun.
before, but she won the 2025 Pulitzer for memoir for this amazing book. Apparently, it's 4,000 square feet worth of illustrations that went into this with Japanese brush pen. It's a gorgeous story of intergenerational research across, like from China to here, across mothers and grandmothers. It's an incredible book. And so she's joining us on October 2nd. I would love to have anyone who's
Wonderful.
interested come. And I don't usually reveal the books ahead of time, Rooney. So that's just like a little surprise that people get in their inbox at the top of every month.
Oh, wow. Okay, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I've read some graphic memoir, and I was very surprised when I was a new memoirist about um, how, how do I, how much it affected me. I didn't at first. It was like a skill to look at the pictures and try to interpret what was going on, plus the story and the dialogue. But
Yeah.
what do you find with a graphic memoir that is so entrancing or affecting?
Oh my gosh. I mean, this is very new language for me, so I'm going to have a hard time putting it into words. For me, like as a memoirist, I don't have to think about literally putting images on the page. I'm creating images with words only, right? For
Yeah.
someone to visualize in their own mind. But when you're actually handing readers images, there's a different language that you're using. And so I think of like the heavy lift of creating a book like this. I don't know. I somehow feel it in my bones as I'm reading it.
Yes.
It,
More
yeah,
visceral maybe, like it's like very, sensorial maybe. Um,
maybe. Yeah.
there's
And
a
I've never read
question here.
comics. Oh, go ahead.
There's someone who's asking, if you don't reveal the books ahead of time, how can we read the book and prepare to see the author?
Oh, well, I reveal them at the top of the month. So say I
You get the
reveal
month.
it.
I gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. And I always reveal it to the folks who are in the memoiring Zoom with the author as well. So yeah, you
So
usually
are
get
you saying, like,
30
the
days.
Sorry. Oh, got it, got it, got it.
You get
I
30
understand
days.
now.
Yeah.
It's not like they pop into the Zoom and you're like, "Ta-da, we're reading this book today."
No. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. No, no. The Feeding Ghosts memoir is the September book, and we're meeting with Tessa on October 2nd.
got it,
So
got it,
you
got it.
have, yeah,
You had a whole
plenty of
month.
time to read. Yeah. And you need a whole month. I mean, people are busy and they're reading some fiction too, you know? So
Uh,
yes.
yeah, before I was doing the podcast, I definitely needed a month. Now I have to like read so fast. Okay, so that is your second year of memoiring book club. You know where to find Melise. My celebration is 200 plus now episodes of Let's Talk Memoir, which
Woohoo.
and now I think I'm up to 202. So that I realized, you know what I was proud about? Like, I mean, it is free. If you don't know my work and you're here because of Melise, you can find me on Substack at Let's Talk Memoir. I do craft advice once a month on Substack. There's no paywall. And my podcast, Let's Talk Memoir, is available everywhere you get podcasts, no paywall. But when I was looking at my actual page of all of my different episodes, and I realized, oh, because when you see them on your own website, and then you realize, oh, I titled those, I came up with the blurbs for those, I read those, I interviewed them, and I was like, whoosh, like, also, how do I
It's
come up with
incredible.
titles? Am I going to run out of titles? But I guess no. Like we all have so many things inside of us, and it's just the way we
Yeah.
pull them out and show them and shape them. So, I guess did we do what we wanted to do? Did we
I
come and
think
do the
so, but
things that we are gonna do?
I think so, but I just want to celebrate you a little bit more because, as somebody who, has been in media a very long time, it's very hard to craft those headlines and pull out those things. There are so many ways that you can frame someone's, book or celebrate them or highlight them. And you always pick the most interesting thing. Like you do get us with those titles. You're doing an amazing
Oh my
job at
gosh, I'm
highlighting an
so
entry
glad.
point. Yeah,
Well, you know
yeah, you
what?
really
I
do.
try to I try to find something that I'd wanna read
Yeah,
because sometimes you can
totally.
come up there was a couple of, like, titles I was like, "Ooh, that would be interesting and controversial," and then I thought, "That's just clickbait, and that doesn't actually say what this is," and then I realized, well, the author's talking a lot about X, but I'm like, "But she's also talking about this over here," and that's actually something that I think a lot of people wanna know about, and so
Yeah.
that's what I do, but I wanna say that, first of all, thank you to everyone who hung in there, including you, Melise.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, I was like, "What's gonna happen? We won't be able to do it." You're my very last celebration for 200 episodes. You're my 4th out of 4, and what a beautiful way to end, and it's so fun to see you and talk with
You
you,
too.
and, everyone, I wanna thank you for spending this time with us. You are tenacious and you're supportive. I love all the messages, and this will be available. I will post it, and we will share it as a full, video or whatever we call it. And happy Friday to everyone, and happy memoiring, and happy Let's Talk Memoir. And I feel so happy as a creative and a writer and a person and a human today because I had this time with you.
Oh, thank you. It's been an amazing experience. Let's do it again.
I would love to. Okay, goodbye, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Thanks so
I'll
much for
talk
everyone who was here.
again. Thank you.